Thank you, Jody. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you coming this evening, and I'm really happy to be part of your Sangha gathering tonight. I know I say this every time I visit you, but I have to say it again, which is thank you so much for taking care of and supporting each other in your practice, because these days, it's not an easy place. It's not an easy life to live, and it's not even, I think nowhere in the world is an easy place right now. And so I really want to say thank you for being present with each other every week to do your meditation practice together to support each other in your practice. Also, want to thank the organizers for bringing all of this to you on Zoom, because I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I have noticed that Zoom is getting, that human beings have adopted Zoom oddly. And so we can create community in like any kind of space. It's pretty amazing how when you meet with people over and over again in the same space in cyberspace, it also feels like community. So anyway, just thank you for making it available. So yes, you've just had a wonderful meditation, I hope, and I'm going to be talking with you this evening. We're continuing to work through the book, A Guide to Shamatha and Vipashyana Meditation by Thrangu Rinpoche. We skipped over the parts, if you recall, that I had a hard time understanding because it was about Madhyamaka. But in any case, we're going to be talking tonight about working with difficulties in meditation. We're on chapter 4, bringing obstacles onto the path, and then we talked about the 6 types of adversities that we can bring on the path. The first is thoughts, and we talked about that last time. And tonight we're going to talk about disturbing emotions and the path, bringing those onto the path. So meanwhile, since you just had a session of meditation, I thought for this evening I would start with questions about meditation. At Columbus KTC, from time to time, I do a program called The Meditation Doctor is In. And so this means that you can bring your questions about your meditation practice, including the one you just did. You can bring those questions, and I will do my best to answer them. And if I cannot, I will ask up the chain, because at KTD, we have what at Karma Triana Dharma Chakra Monastery in Woodstock, which is our home monastery and yours too. We have a pretty deep bench, if you want to use sports language, of Kempos and scholars and meditation teachers who can answer the questions that I can't answer. So I'm opening the floor to questions about meditation for the next, I'll set a timer so I don't go too far over. Oh, great. This is terrific. Hey, now that's a first. I did not bring my cell phone. It's in the other room. Ha ha, lucky me. So I'll set a timer here and take questions for about 10 minutes. So before we get into the program, anybody have questions? You can use the raise hand function or ask in chat. I see there might be one. Okay, no, thank you. I saw that. Yeah. Yes, please. Go for it.
I raised my hand immediately because I didn't want to forget my question.
Did you?
No. Well,
Okay.
if I talk anymore, I will, but
Fair.
Yes. Recently, I started thinking about, I won't go into why this happened, but what is the difference between when you are watching the breath, following the breath going in rather than following the breath going out?
Mm-hmm.
Why do one over the other, and what is the purpose of one over the other?
Yeah. Oddly, I know the answer to this one. I mean, I know a bunch of trivia. See, this is the cool thing about having attended lots of lectures and read some books in my life. I actually have memory of some of these things. Um, I'm just going to dive into the deep past. In 1988, I know before some people were born, but let's not go there. But in 1988, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche gave his first meditation instructors workshop for Western teachers at KTD Monastery. So he decided that all of us lay people who were not lamas, needed to learn how to teach meditation. So there were representatives from all the different KTC centers there, and he taught us how to be meditation teachers. And he mentioned a couple of things that dovetailed with some things I had read previously. Now, I exaggerated when I said I knew the reason, but because that's not exactly true. There is a function to both types of awareness. I said awareness, attention, both types of attention, and I'll tell you how it works. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, when we start meditating, he said they need a lot of, he didn't use this word, but they need a lot of props. They need propping up. It's like training wheels on a bicycle. Meditators need these props to prop up their attention. Okay, they need to pay attention to the breath coming in and the breath going out. Okay, fair. So, Rinpoche said when you first start, there are quite a few props under the person's attention. For example, they're sitting in meditation posture, right? Their eyes are either closed or cast downward. He said the eyes being closed and cast downward dampens the impact of the things they see. And if they close their eyes completely, they could fall asleep, which he said is a risk. But they have, in some ways, fewer visual distractions. But he did warn people that the whole idea of meditating with the eyes open is because we're not shutting out the world. We're trying to learn how to be with the world while not being sidetracked by what we see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why eventually he said it would be better, instead of closing the eyes, to have them open. Okay, so that's the first prop up under our attention, the downcast gaze and so forth. Then he said, when they first start meditating, if they use the breath as their object of meditation, he said they can follow the breath all the way in, follow the breath all the way out, and think of that breath as being an invisible stream. In other words, you place your attention on the breath as it goes in and fills your lungs. Go with the breath as it goes out and disperses into space. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the second thing. First is the downcast gaze, then the complete attention to the breath. Then the third thing is counting. So in breath, out breath, mentally count 1, in breath, out breath, mentally count 2, and so forth. Then he said, over time, he said people might begin to relinquish or shed their props. For example, he said usually the first thing to go is counting. He said because counting's not for everyone, and I understood this, and I think he did too. Some people say that counting makes them a little crazy, so they get rid of it right away. Other people just find over time that they no longer need the counting to help them keep track of where they are in the meditation. Then he said, so the second prop that will fall away, he said, is attention to the invisible stream of the breath. Breath coming all the way in, breath going all the way out, and so forth. And then he said, you could encourage them to be, so that's the second thing to let go of is that invisible stream. Thinking of breath as an invisible stream, and then being only attentive to the sensation of the breath coming in and the breath going out. And then he said, eventually, you can encourage people to let go of attention to the in-breath and only be attentive to the out-breath. And he did not give a reason, so I was wrong when I indicated that I knew the reason. I think it's just that it's another prop to remove. And what happens each time we remove one of these props is that the meditation becomes slightly more complicated. It can become a little more complicated because we'll have a little wobble because our attention is not propped up quite as much. But that's okay as long as we remember to notice, label, and discard distraction. Now, you don't have to label it. If you just notice it, notice your distraction, and discard it, and then return to the breath, and think of that return as a fresh start. So I think that's really the key piece. Oh, and he said one more thing. He said, eventually, he said, the person will be able to relinquish attention to the out breath and just merely be present with the breath coming and going from the nostrils. You know, not even attending to whether it's coming or going, just the lightest sensation. And then he said, if they're still good with the technique and can keep returning and returning and returning, if they can follow the technique with all those props set aside, he said, then they can raise the gaze from the floor. So he said this progression is going to take place over days, weeks, months, and maybe even a year or more. And for people like me, I always start every session with attention in, attention out, and the counting. And then it falls away after a period of time. So I wish I could tell you the reason, but I don't know the reason why this or that, why the in-breath and out-breath are attended to other than it being a prop, to prop up our attention so we can notice distraction more readily. That's what I mean when I say it's a prop up under our attention, because otherwise we may be inattentive to a distraction and be somewhere off in fantasy land for 2 or 3 minutes before we even notice we're distracted. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, I understand. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another question. What about if you have a hard time with keeping your eyes open, but when your eyes closed, you get sleepy? I know. That's a tough one. If you have a hard time keeping your eyes open, but when eyes are closed, you get sleepy. It's almost like you can't win. You might try, what you might try is a visual object, because using a visual object will help you to stay steady. The common thing that's used is a small river stone that's smooth, like oval-shaped river stone, fairly unremarkable, no special markings on it, not glittery or anything like that. And it's about somewhere between 1.5 to 2 inches long. And you would set it on your table and then rest your eyes on it. Rest your gaze upon it. You're not like trying to memorize the stone. You're just staying attentive to the appearance of that stone. And Khenpo Rinpoche said when you use a visual object, he said the way you pay attention is important. He said the way you rest your mind on the object is that you are definitely attending to it, but you're not conceptualizing about it in any way. Like, that is a dark stone, that is a light stone. Where did it come from? What's it made of? I mean, you make no comment. But he said instead of making comments about the stone, instead you just allow your attention to rest on the stone, and that when your attention wanders from the stone, you bring it back. Your eyes could literally look at it forever, but your attention may go somewhere. And so you might try that as an alternative. It will give your eyes something to rest on, and it would not, and you wouldn't end up getting sleepy. So the other thing one of my lamas told me was, "Oh, are you nearsighted?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Great, take your glasses off. Now you're fine." Because he said you don't have to worry about looking at anything. So thanks for that question. My 10 minutes are up, but I will take one more, if there's one more out there.
Lama Kathy, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard in Shamatha, I don't remember where I heard it, but maybe it's if you want to do an objectless meditation, a meditation with no object, that you just
Uh-huh.
you look like you imagine there's like a glass sheet 2 feet in front of you or something to try to get your gaze to be relaxed and more panoramic. Is 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 that right or
I've never heard that.
okay.
I've never heard that, so I can't help you there. But but that being said, we have to talk about the difference between object versus objectless meditation, because each has a function. Objects help us because again they prop up our attention and help us to notice when our attention is wandering. Whereas objectless is a little more challenging because because we don't have something to attend to in general. So then we would have this focus problem. And this is why I never use the word focus when I teach meditation, because I don't want people, bearing down on something with like a lot of effort. Now, that being said, Khenpo Karthon Rinpoche did in his commentary on pointing out the Dharmakaya mention a meditation in which after doing a progressive dissolution meditation, that after you do this specific style of dissolution, and it's very similar to the dissolution that's done at the end of Guru Yoga, so that's something with which many people will be familiar. And in fact, Khenpo Rinpoche himself taught a very simplified Guru Yoga that can be done by anybody. There's not even a text that goes with it. And to do that, he said you visualize that your guru is present either in front of you or above your head, and then you think of the guru as being actually present, but the guru is made of light and not made of flesh and blood, and so forth. And then you address the guru and you ask for the guru's blessing. And then you can visualize that streams of light come from, a white stream of light comes from the guru's forehead to your forehead. A red stream of light comes from the guru's throat to your throat. And then a blue stream of light comes from the guru's heart to your heart. And then these serially purify your body, your speech, and your mind of all of your obstacles and obscurations. And then all three lights come at one time because they were serial before. First the white to the forehead, red to the throat, and blue to the heart. The white removes the obstacles of body, the red removes the obstacles of speech, and the blue removes obstacles of mind. But then when you see all three lights come simultaneously, this removes all remaining obstacles and obscurations that may have been left over. And then the guru dissolves into light and merges with you, either directly toward you if he's in front of you, or in a stream through the top of your head if he's on top of your head. And then he said, you think that as the guru dissolves into you, that your mind and the guru's mind mix inseparably. And I love the way Rinpoche put this. It's not in the article that I quoted him in, but and I'll get you that link. He said, how did he put it? He said, it's like you rest in the confidence that your mind and the guru's mind have mixed inseparably. And then on another occasion, he said something to the effect of, well, it stands to reason that your mind and the guru's mind could mix inseparably, because he said, the guru's nature of mind is Dharmakaya. Your nature of mind is Dharmakaya. So it would make sense. The two would be able to mix inseparably with one another. And then he said, not in the article that I spoke of, but in his discussion of this in pointing out the Dharmakaya, he did say that after the dissolution ends, that you can open your eyes and look into space, and that it would be like a few feet ahead. He didn't mention any like pane of glass or anything like that, but that you remain looking straight ahead at this sort of indistinct area a few feet ahead of you. But see, here's the thing. You don't do this for very long. He said you only do it for as long as the attention to it lasts. Because otherwise, he said, if you're pushing yourself to quote unquote accomplish something with your meditation, then he said you'll fall prey to distractions and maybe even fantasies, like fantasy meditation, where you make up what's happening. So he said it's these short, for lack of a better word, these short bursts of attentiveness. And I mean, just being of relaxed attentiveness should be allowed to last as long as they naturally do. And then the person could move into or segue into just a regular shamatha meditation, and then do the guru yoga again, and then relax, and so forth and so on, and
Nice.
do this over and over, And I did put the article where Rinpoche described this in the chat, but when people have I've done a little bit of teaching for folks who have finished their Nundro, because Khenpo Rinpoche said I could teach pointing out the Dharmakaya, his commentary, but I can't teach anybody else's because I wasn't present for it, but I could teach his. So anyway, we can always talk about that some other time.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Okay, well then, I appreciate the questions, and if you have more, you can write them down, and we'll work with them later. But I have the book, and I thought it would be nice, just because you just did a nice meditation, right? You just did a meditation, so if you have like specific questions, I appreciate you bringing them up tonight. So last episode, we talked about working with thoughts, and then this particular, let's see, yeah. He says, like Thrangu Rinpoche on page 52 of this book, he says, when we're meditating, he said, the second paragraph on page 52, I'm just going to cover slightly what we did last time. He said, eventually a thought may arise. It could be a weak thought or an intense thought, a virtuous thought or an unvirtuous thought. In any case, the remedy is the same. We need to recognize that the thought has arisen, and once we recognize that the thought is present, we need to apply an antidote. However, there's no actual remedy for eliminating thoughts. Instead, we can recognize that a thought has arisen and then analyze the thought, asking questions as such as, where did it come from? What color is it? Where is it located? Which has already been explained in previous sections of the book. That's the first way, is actually sort of interrogating the thought. That's kind of an interesting, like, where is that thought? What color is it? What shape is it? And you won't see any of those things if you truly do look directly at the presence of the thought. Then Thrangu Rinpoche says another way to deal with thoughts when they arise is not to try to stop or get rid of them. So this is like a different approach. You can either look into the thought and ask what it is, what color it is and shape it is and so on, or he said, don't try to stop or get rid of them, or try to follow it. You don't try to follow them, and you also don't try to get rid of them. Instead, we don't try to alter or analyze the thought in any way. All we do is look directly at the thought in a relaxed way. When we look directly at the thought, the substance of the thought will disappear. But even before the thought has dissolved, we will see its nature, which is beyond our conceptual mind. In this way, even though the thought is still present, it has become part of our meditation, and that is how thoughts are brought onto the path. He said, as a beginner, when we attempt to look at intense thoughts, we may find this uncomfortable or unnatural, and sometimes impossible. That's me. But if we continue to look directly at thoughts, the thoughts will eventually become quite natural and an effective way to do our meditation, even in the midst of many thoughts. Once we are experienced with this method, it can become a habit for dealing with thoughts as they arise. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, what does that mean when they say look directly at the thought? The only explanation I can give is I use a phrase in English that helps me to understand this. When they're saying look directly at the thought, I don't think they're meaning with your eyes. I think what they mean is turn your intention, your inner attention, turn your attention to that thought. And when you turn your attention to the thought, it can sometimes disappear. And this, I think, happens because we are no longer inside the thought. We have actually stepped outside of it. We're no longer the character having that thought. We have stepped away from the thought and are no longer identifying with the thought. We've stepped away from it and are looking at it as though from the outside. The minute we, I'm going to make up a word, disinhabit. When we move out of that thought, when we step away from that thought, step away. When we step away from that thought, it becomes very depersonalized, and it's no longer like I am thinking this. It's like, oh, look at that. And then once we take ourselves out of the equation, the thought really has nothing to do, and it just disappears. And so when we turn the attention to the thought, we're no longer inside it, we're outside it looking at it with our attention. So turning your attention to the thought, frequently it will disappear all by itself. Now, if it's intense, it won't do that. And I think he's trying to indicate that here in the paragraph by saying, when we try to look at something intense, I mean, it's like, try to do this, an example of how to do something like this is maybe you're watching television and you're really engrossed in a musical performance or a dance performance or, even a stage play. Take your attention away from the screen for just a minute and look at the mind that's looking at the TV. And it's another one of my buddies said, he said, that's weird. He said, that gives me a weird feeling. He says, it's like you're at the movie theater and the movie's being projected on the screen, but you're not watching the action. You're looking at the screen. It's behind the action. The thing upon which it's all being projected. I thought that was a real interesting idea too. When you try to do that, it's really fascinating because it's all about stepping outside of the thought, because when we're inside a thought, it's a big hairy deal. That thought is a big hairy deal because it's our thought and we're having it. And it's a good one or it's a bad one or it's a something. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I thought I would review it briefly. Any questions about this? Okay, I thought I'd check. Now, number 2, on the bottom of page 52, he talks about bringing disturbing emotions onto the path. The second type of adversity to be brought onto the path concerns disturbing emotions. Disturbing emotions are a specific type of thought. Yeah, did you know emotions are thoughts? It's pretty cool, actually. I call emotions thoughts with a good public relations team. Really good. That they've got their hype man working out there trying to make them bigger than life. So anyway, they're a specific type of thought that are particularly problematic because they cause us suffering and indirectly cause others to suffer as well. According to the Buddha's teachings, okay, well, let's go back to this emotions being thoughts. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Okay, let's say that, and then I'll move on. But I just have to use this illustration because it helped me a lot to understand that emotions are actually just thoughts that have such a physical experience that accompanies them that we think they're more than just thoughts. Let's use the example of somebody you've had a quarrel with, and you're still kind of mad at them. They said something rude to you or said something rude about you, and you're mad at them. So you're at somebody's house or for a party or you're doing this or that, and then they come in the door. The minute you see them and identify them, it's like, it's them. And so the only thing that actually happened was that this person walked into the room. You did the rest. Your thinking did the rest. And it was almost instantaneous. The minute you recognized it was them, the anger comes up. It's like, argh. And so the anger came up so rapidly after the thought, oh, it's them, that it looked like a smooth operation, that it's something other than a thought. But that tiny little germ of a thought gave rise to something habitual and large. And I think that's the reason that we think that emotions are not thoughts, is because the reaction to them, the habituated reaction to anger and attachment and all the rest, is almost anchored in the body, and that the body helps us, is really the hype man that makes us think that thoughts are more than, emotions are more than thoughts. Anyhow, sorry. That example helped me a lot. So, to go to page 53 of this, he says, according to the Buddhist teachings in the sutras and the tantras, all disturbing emotions can be summed up into 5 main types. And these are often referred to, and sometimes you can reduce them to 3 different types. They're usually referred to as 5 or 3 poisons because they poison the mind if we don't deal with them. And the first major disturbing emotion is it is actually ignorance, but it gives rise to attachment and aversion. The ignorance is that we don't know that we have, that our thoughts are the products of our karma, and we don't understand that our mind has these different functions and so forth, and that we are not an entity. Anyway, more later. They talk about the teaching on no self. We don't recognize that, and because of that, we posit a self, and because we posit a self, there's automatically another. So self and other give rise to comparison and emotion and liking and disliking. It's just that simple. So he says the first major disturbing emotion is a strong attachment to anything, food, wealth, pleasure, relationships. This is considered poisonous because being attached to these things can cause us suffering and can cause us to do negative things. The second disturbing emotion is aggression. Aggression has many varieties, such as hatred, holding a grudge, spitefulness, malevolence, and so on. My buddies in 12-step will recognize the word resentment. So it's like that. Then all of these varieties of the same are varieties of the same basic disturbing emotion of aversion or aggression. The third disturbing emotion is, and instead of calling it ignorance, he calls it apathy, which is arising from ignorance or mental dullness. As explained earlier, this ignorance is not understanding the phenomena of the world is not solid and real. So we don't see things as impermanent. We don't see things as interdependent, and so on. We don't see things as they really are. Then the fourth disturbing emotion is pride, which is thinking that we have good qualities and others lack them. The fifth is jealousy, which is resenting the fact that others have good qualities, wealth, and so on. And we think that we also deserve these. These 5 types of disturbing emotions do not usually arise all at one time, but they are problems that can definitely ruin our practice of Dharma, and especially our meditation practice. And so he says the first step in taking disturbing emotions onto the path is to recognize that a disturbing emotion has arisen. So in this way, it's just like the exercise that he taught us on page 51 and 52, where he says the first thing is to notice that something has arisen. To notice. And you know, I may have talked about this last time, but I want to mention it again. If I talked about Shenpa, 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 the Tibetan word that means hooked, that you're hooked by something. A lot of us won't notice that we're having a mental affliction until we feel something in our body. Maybe if we're fearful, we will feel cold. If we're angry, we'll feel hot, and so forth and so on. But you may actually even just feel the discomfort of something being wrong, something just being wrong. There's something wrong with this. And that is called, I had a fancy name for it before I knew that it was Shenpa. I called it like the tension, your physical tension, the tension of complication, that your mind is very open and free and easy until something happens to make, our eyebrows come together in the middle of our head and just we tense up all over. And that feeling is really our self-fixation being activated. Our ego fixation is activated. And when we get that moment of being hooked, that's what's going on, is that our ego fixation has been activated in one of these emotions. And And at that moment, we've kind of lost our mind for a minute and become something, become the angry one, become the jealous one, become the upset one, whatever. We've just like jumped into another dimension, another world, the world of this thought or that thought, the world that is, I mean, those of you who have studied with or studied the teachings of Mingyur Rinpoche have heard him say that, yes, rebirth. Everybody talks about Tibetan Buddhism. In Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about rebirth. He said, but rebirth doesn't just happen after you die. He said, it happens any moment that you believe a thought that you have just had. If someone, I mean, the example would be like if you heard somebody insult you, right? That you would, from that moment, you've jumped into a different rebirth. You're in a rebirth where you're being disrespected by that person. You're in a world, you've just taken rebirth in the world of that thought. And then when that thought ends, you sort of die out of the world of that thought and then are reborn into the world of the next thought. So these mental states are very powerful and can cause us to feel as though we've been reborn in hell or in heaven or somewhere. And so this is why it's important. And those of you who know how much I love Lojong mind training know that that the minute we take rebirth in one of these painful worlds, we tend to act out. And when we act out, it gets worse. And so we have to recognize when we're having a thought, recognize when we're having an emotion, and be able to step away from that thought or emotion long enough to see that we are having it. And the minute we step outside of it, we gain the power to do something with it and to engage it almost in conversation. Engage with it rather than trying to throw it away or run away from it or stuff it down and pretend it's not happening. I mean, I call this the continuum of emotion. When we feel something and it's painful, we tend to run away to one of two extremes. We either foolishly and carelessly express it wildly, or we foolishly and carelessly try to stuff it down and pretend it's not happening. And in neither case have we really engaged with and dealt with the emotion. We've just tried to throw it away by exploding with it or get rid of it by stuffing it down. And in neither case have we dealt with it. So mind training, and this is a form of mind training that he's talking about here, is staying with the emotion, engaging with it, and trying to transform it. So, sorry, I get a little excited. So what he says is you recognize, bottom paragraph on page 53, you recognize the first step in dealing with them is to recognize it's arisen. Often, when a disturbing emotion arises, it takes hold of our mind before we're even aware that it has arisen. So we need to learn about these distinct emotions. See, so you have to learn what it is, but recognize that shenpa, that moment that you get hooked by something. When you feel that tension in your body, ask yourself what's going on. So, often when a disturbing emotion has arisen and we are emotionally invested in it, we don't try to stop or get rid of it. The antidote for disturbing emotions is identical to the approach for dealing with thoughts. You don't need to stop emotions because the nature of the disturbing emotion is empty. I lost my place. Is empty. Okay, has the same oh shoot, there's a grammar problem here. The nature of the disturbing emotion is emptiness, essentially, which is the same as the nature of the thought, which is the same as the nature of the mind. So I'm sorry the grammar here is not good, but that's what he's trying to say. So once we have recognized the disturbing emotion, again, we look at it directly and look at its nature without attempting to alter our mind or the emotion itself. As we look at the disturbing emotion, we will experience and recognize its nature. To do this, of course, our mind needs to be relaxed, and we also need to have some clear awareness. When the disturbing emotion's nature is recognized, it is still there. The emotion is still there, but it's no longer poisonous and no longer a problem. Before the disturbing emotion has vanished, it can become an aid to our meditation. Now, he doesn't go into any more depth than that, but those of you who have some experience learning Mahamudra meditation techniques know that if you can look at a thought and it disappears, your work is done. If it disappears, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said it disappears without remainder, meaning that there's actually nothing left of it, no dregs of a bad feeling, and so on. And I think that this is why mind training. Hi, can I give a commercial for my favorite topic? Mahayana mind training, Lojong, as explained in the 7-point mind training book, The Great Path of Awakening. I wish I got money every time that I would be able to donate lots of money to the monastery. Anyway, in this, we're taught to work with emotions as part of a larger, there you go, all right, as part of a larger, represent, I know, everybody's got it, this is, okay, as part of a larger effort, which is to train our mind in the bodhisattva motivation, which is also called bodhicitta. And this is how understanding emotions and understanding thoughts can actually strengthen our practice and our meditation. Because when we see that thoughts can be let go of, when we see that emotions can be let go of, if it's okay for us to let them go, nothing bad happens. We let them go and we're still here. We didn't die. Nothing went wrong. If we see that we can do that, then we can use the experience of it disappearing as information and fill that empty space with the bodhisattva motivation and saying, may I and all beings be free from such negative emotions, and may we all become Buddhas. Because that's part of the training in 7-point mind training, is to do that, to be able to train in understanding yourself and having compassion for yourself, but also having compassion for others. So in any case, I think we'll stop here because it's 21 minutes past the hour. Because we complete at 10:30, is that right? Or at 7:30 for you, right? Okay. So let's see if anybody wants to discuss this or has questions or examples from your own life of when you did this and it worked. Questions, curiosities. I'll keep an eye on chat.
I have a question if no one else does.
Yeah, sure.
Do you ever get discouraged thinking, is everyone like, is everyone going to reach enlightenment? Like, you know what I mean? That's hard to explain. Like, not just ourselves, but like, is like when it like it feels like, I don't know, like that it will never happen. Like everybody will eventually, I don't know. It's like
I see what you're saying. Yeah. How do I personally not get discouraged when I realize that it's going to take forever for everybody to get enlightened? Is that kind of the question?
Yeah. Right.
Well, I really appreciate that question, because what that question means is that you care. you care about other beings, and that's a really good place to be. But yeah, you can't be too discouraged about it. I mean, because here's the thing. Somebody asked, and here I am getting lucky at sitting in these talks when people ask Khenpo Rinpoche these weighty questions. Somebody asked him, like, they say, may all beings be awakened, but it's like, is that really possible even? And he said, and his answer was really cool. It was like, theoretically, it is possible. Theoretically possible because every being has Buddha nature. So theoretically, it is possible that at some point everyone will be enlightened. Okay, but he said the likelihood is where the problem is. It's theoretically possible, but the likelihood is a little dicey. I can't remember the precise words that the translator used, but that was the indication. And no, I tell you what, it doesn't get discouraging because you've all read the children's story about the starfish, the person who walks along the beach. All these starfish got beached, and this one person is just walking down the beach, and there's dozens of starfish laying on the beach, and they throw one in, and then they walk a few more feet, and they throw another one in, and somebody says, "Look, you're not gonna, it's impossible. You're not gonna get all these. It's not, you're not gonna get all these starfish back in the sea, and why are you doing it?" And they said, well, look, it may not be important to you, but it was important to that one. It was important, why are you doing this? It's ridiculous. You'll never get. He said, well, it's important to that one, the one I just threw in. So I kind of feel that this is the unspoken part of the Bodhisattva commitment to wanting to train be a bodhisattva in training, take on this like secret identity. I know superhero movies are all the rage, right? But we take on like the secret identity of being a bodhisattva in training. And I think that helps us. Having that identity as a bodhisattva in training helps us to not be discouraged because we know it's big. I mean, here's the story. You've heard the story about, because it's important for every being we touch. It's important for them, and my husband has a real interesting Dharma practice. He's not much into meditation. In fact, I don't think he ever does it. But he said that his job is to be the one person that doesn't make trouble for somebody. And he goes into service sectors all the time, right? He's old, we're old. We go to doctors' offices all the time, and we just try to be pleasant to all the people there, even the ones that are having a bad day, because we know that they seldom see people who are nice to them. And so, yeah, that's part of his practice, and I think he's really good at it. Because he's incredibly charming. Yeah, it's sort of like this is the whole premise behind the television show Ted Lasso is that he's got a lasso and he brings them all in. So I feel like no sentient being left behind is kind of the idea, and that if we can deeply interiorize the wish to be of benefit to others and to be of benefit to everyone we meet, then I don't myself ever feel discouraged about it. Because I can just affect the one that I can grab and throw back in the sea. Yeah, the Dharma of Ted Lasso. I got to read these comments. Did that help at all, Lisa?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Let's look at what came up while I was talking. It took the Buddha eons to fully get enlightened. Not so? Yes, it did. It took a long time. And he was in it to win it. He was in it to win it. He was in it because, see, and here's the thing. I don't know. Maybe I was born. Maybe I was, what is it, a next door neighbor to Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm? Or maybe I was, I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I grew up in somebody's neighborhood, but I just really, it gives me great joy just to talk to people about Dharma, or just to be pleasant to people and think to myself, may you see some of what Khenpo Rinpoche was to me. May you see just even a tiny piece of what he meant to me. May you experience that by just this moment of me being pleasant to you and me interacting with you. Because Rinpoche said, deeply interiorizing that wish to be of benefit to others, he said it starts an engine, a momentum of goodness that's inside you. He said that eventually becomes self-sustaining. And I've had people tell me this is true for them. So let me go ahead but anyway, Lisa, I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Keep the faith and watch Ted Lasso.
Oh my God, I love Ted Lasso.
I know, my God, the fourth season is on now, and I'm losing my mind. I want to.
Oh, there's another season? I thought
The fourth season started 2 weeks ago, and I think we're on episode 3 now.
on Apple TV?
Yeah, Apple TV, yeah.
I'm boycotting Apple. They don't
Oh,
know.
shoot. I'm so sorry. Then go to a friend's house.
Of course, they have no idea and they don't care, but it makes me feel important.
I bless you. Bless you. Bless you for fighting the good fight. Let's see. May you feel better after interacting with me. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's just like, I can't help you live a better life, person, but I mean, I can't cure your illness. I can't make you better, but just be happy for a moment, just take, the one I threw back in the sea. It's so important to just keep throwing them.
I have a quick question just to touch
Sure.
on what Lisa had mentioned. And I know this may be for another topic, but
Yeah, sure.
I have heard when I was under the practice with Lama Karma Shuzo in Miami that there is a vow that you can take in your Dharma practice to be, I think, reborn to be able to help everybody reach enlightenment. I don't know if I'm articulating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. That's a way of saying the Bodhisattva vow, because it's like, you vow to liberate, you vow to train. I mean, basically the Bodhisattva vow these are the actual words, okay? Just as the Buddhas of the past trained and stage by stage achieved awakening like they did, I too will train and become enlightened, and as they did, become proficient. And I mean, it's just like, again, I got dinged the other day by somebody who wrote a letter saying, you use too many Christian analogies in your talks. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I was born a Christian. And my patron saint, if I may say, Saint Catherine of Siena. Read about her. She's cool. I have a book over on my table there called Enduring Grace, which is a modern day retelling of the stories of several of the Catholic women saints. And St. Catherine of Siena, she was awesome. She was a doctor of the church and was actually a teacher of the Pope, but let's not go there. Anyhow, but she had a saying that was like, she said, because Jesus said, God is love, and Jesus basically taught love and compassion as the way. So St. Catherine said, all the way to heaven is heaven. For Jesus said, I am the way, or love is the way. I just thought that was so cool. So you can't give up on yourself and that kind of thing. We can't help every person, but at least we can try not to harm them. at the very least. So appreciate that question. Yeah, there is a vow. There's a wonderful book by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche called Dharma Paths, Paths, Dharma Paths. And he has a whole section in there on the way of the Bodhisattva. It's cool. And then Pema Chodron wrote a book that just got reissued as the book Becoming Bodhisattvas, which I love Pema Chodron. And she explains this like 8th century Bodhisattva text that includes the vow in it. So she explains the whole thing. It's really cool. So I like that book. Well, because of time, my gosh, look, we ran over a little bit. You guys are amazing. It's so much fun talking to you. So I'll have to stop here for tonight, but next time, tune in, because we're going to talk about bringing suffering onto the path. Yeah. Oh, the saints are like the 21 Taras. Yes. Former Catholics, I love y'all because you guys get it. What's so fun is that a Catholic helped me understand who the Buddha was. They said, "Oh, Buddha denied being God? Well, that means he's a saint." So it's a religion of saints. That again, I got dinged for that. But hey, if it's an example that works, you got to use it. So we're going to talk next time about bringing suffering onto the path. So we'll talk about that next time. Meanwhile, continue to support each other in your practice and continue to do some practice every day, even if you could just 5 minutes. Just do some kind of Dharma practice every day. Just for a few minutes. It's the consistency, not the length, that matters. So here's a dedication of merit. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. See you next month.
Thank
Okay,
you,
yes, see you.
Auntie. Bye.
See you next month.
Everyone,
Omani
take care. Bye.
Padme Hum.